that's actually now going to present a problem. And because it was our recommendation, we thought it would work. What I've said in my message is that we're gonna retract that and keep the current language of weekly. I don't know whether there'll be an objection to that. I don't think there will be, but
Yes, we had proposed to change from bi-weekly to weekly to match more of the employee groups.
Weekly to bi-weekly, you mean you?
Or weekly to bi-weekly, I'm
Right,
sorry, yes.
okay.
To match more of the employee groups. You know, it was making payroll much more difficult, for the business office to handle. But I guess with the new software, it's going to work out better.
Right.
To have a weekly instead.
so if need be, because the paraprofessionals have already ratified this, if we ratify it, if you ratify or approve it tonight, then we'll keep that approval in place, but then we'll write a memorandum of agreement, a subsequent memorandum of agreement that will revert that back to the company.
Just quickly on the secretaries and some background. 3 years ago, and I don't know, I think Nicole was involved with secretaries 3 years ago. There was a huge gap between what our secretaries were making and secretaries in other towns, in the school departments, and also in our town hall here, our administrative staff in town hall. And 3 years ago, we went a fairly long way toward closing that gap, but we weren't able to close it all. I believe this year, we have gotten the secretaries to a point now where they are equal to, or at least close to, any of the secretaries at any school districts in our surrounding area. We still have not gotten them close to the town hall. We still have not gotten them to that level. And to be honest, and I think Dr. Trope will confirm, that was one of our sticking points as we went through these negotiations, is they kept pointing to town hall and, you know, making it a little difficult for us. So I think we've come up with a deal. We have given them, we've added 2 steps, and we're dropping the current steps 1 and 2. So there'll still be the same number of steps, but they'll start at a higher salary rate. We've increased the longevity payments, which I believe, David, now match the town hall longevity payments. And we don't have that written here, but I believe, was it 2.5, or in a percent? I'm trying to, or 2.5, 2, or something. It's either 2.5, 2, or 2.5. This is a group of 11 people that have a whole lot of responsibility in the school system. If you think about, especially, you think about the secretaries in the schools, they not only deal with the principals, they deal with the staff, they deal with the students, they deal with the parents, they deal with everything. And then you have the secretaries in the athletic department, and some of the other departments that, again, have a whole lot of responsibility. And we feel that what we've done here is, we brought them close to town hall, and as I said, made them equal with the secretaries in surrounding communities. David, I don't know if you have anything to add.
Yeah, what I would say, and I thank you for talking about that comparative data between school secretaries and other districts. I do think the role of school secretaries, particularly with data technology, has changed significantly. But it is interesting to note that when we say we're getting to be comparative, that's in the 3rd year.
Right.
That's 3 years from now. We'll be comparative to where some people are today.
So we still have some work to do in the area. We were woefully behind, Nicole, when you worked with the secretaries back 3 years ago, and
Well, maybe the negotiations ever since we were losing. Oh, yeah, you need more money.
Exactly.
Yes, we do, okay.
and I think we've gotten, as David said, we're getting closer, and I think 3 years down the road, hopefully we can finally close the gap completely. But they do have a significant amount of responsibility in our system. And there's not a whole lot of them. I think there's 10 or 11, and they really do a good job. So those are the two, and our business manager says we can afford these, so I guess they're okay. Any questions?
You know, when I think about the, I know Mr. Bowers has talked about his work in the private sector, but we think about, for example, the high school, where you have almost 800 students, 80 staff altogether, and you have two secretaries who are running that office. I think that ratio is probably a pretty good one overall.
Can I have a motion first to approve the paraprofessional contract, 3 years, 2008 through 2011 school year contract?
So moved.
Motion by Mrs. Davis, second by Mr. Bowers. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Can I have a motion to approve the 2008 school year through 2008-2009 through 2011-2012 school year contract for the,
I think it's 2010, 2011.
is it,
Did I say it wrong? 2008 to 2011.
okay, 2008 to 2011 contract for the secretaries?
So move.
I'll give that to, Jerry hasn't had a motion to it, I'll give that to Mr. Venezia. I'll give Mr. Okay, I'll give Mr. Bowers a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous.
Congratulations to both of you. Job well done.
And just for planning, the teachers have 1 more year on their contract, correct, David? So this is the final year. So assuming that we will commence negotiations sometime within this school year with the teacher group. Okay, next we have to review our capital budget items for the October town meeting. Mr. Nelson?
Thank you. I think the best way to talk about the capital budget requests is to take them in 2 different kinds of categories. I remind the committee that the school committee had preliminarily voted to support 8 requests for April town meeting, April of 2008. But because of limitations on cash flow, both the town and school ended up limiting its capital budget requests to 0 for April and moved them to October. Also, Dave, you and I also forgot the fact we need to add that small capital line in October as well. So getting back to my point, let's think of capital budget requests in 2 categories, and let's take numbers 1 and 2 as shown on your handout: building security and the technology lease. Building security, of course, would be the hoped-for completion of the security project for the district. The amount that is requested at this stage is $150,000, and that would fall into priority 1. The priorities are set out by the town administrator, and priority 1 refers to an evaluation criteria that's called risk to public safety and health. So priority 1 is a safety and health issue. At the last October town meeting, I believe there was a presentation on the security project, and at that time it was stated that we would be coming back with phase 2. The second item here, the technology lease, would constitute year 2 of a 3-year request. We have found that we get a lot more bang for our buck, particularly when we can get 0% leasing deals. You see those for automobiles, but you can also get them for computers. So we entered 1 year ago into a $180,000 agreement with with a state contractor, Dell Computer, at outstanding rates. And we're acquiring over 200 computers in year one of this agreement. So we get to use these for 3 years. That's the good news. The bad news is you do have a 3-year commitment. But we were upfront and vocal about this when we went to town meeting 1 year ago and told the finance committee, the selectmen at town meeting that last year was year one of a 3-year deal. So we will be going back for these funds. If for some reason town meeting does not appropriate these funds, it would be the responsibility of the school department to
We have to find the money for it.
out of our operational costs. And I'd like to add one more capital request. It's not shown here to this first grouping, and that is the remainder of our small capital. The small capital request originally set out in the FY09 budget was for $120,000, and in order to make the budget balance, we ended up receiving a $70,000 April appropriation, which took care of all the textbook needs we had.
And we had to spend that before the end of the fiscal year,
Yes,
correct?
we did.
Right.
And we have done so. Those were textbook adoptions that you approved, I believe, at the last meeting, or 2 meetings ago. And the understanding at that time was that the remaining $50,000 would be added to October town meeting for the remainder of our small capital requirements.
I just, we're sort of talking out loud here, thinking out loud. I'm just wondering if the small capital should be tied into the capital, the major capital, or will it be a separate budget amendment? Is a question.
Okay.
Because it would be, our small capital typically has been part of the FY09
Right.
budget. So we're gonna have to see how that was handled.
I agree. I think, though, it may be in our best interest now to consider it, even though we've distinguished small capital from major capital in the past. I believe that Bob Mosseri's indication to us was that we would literally have a warrant item set out for it out of the so-called major capital, even though that is a departure from
Right.
past practice. Having said that, if it's determined that it not be considered out of that major capital pool, you can always pull that warrant. So it may be of value to think of it, right, at least for tonight's purposes, as part of the major capital request. So that would be for $50,000. So I wanted to group it that way because those three, I believe the school administration considers as essential. Part of our, all three of them are part of our operating intentions for the school year. And we've been planning to do that, and we've been upfront vocal about those needs.
So those are $260,000 for those top three then?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Now, that's not in any way to denigrate numbers 3 through 8, but numbers 3 through 8 were not discussed this spring as part of the FY09 budget process. Rather, numbers 3 through 8, and particularly numbers 4 through 8, are items that are building renovation improvements. And let's talk about them for a moment. Let me start with number 3, the abatement of asbestos at the little school. I want to begin by stressing that there are no health and safety risks at the little school. Almost all of our schools contain asbestos products, including the middle school here. And we're very aggressive about maintaining the oversight over the asbestos. We have a private company come in every 6 months religiously to inspect the asbestos and to make recommendations for what we need to do to maintain it. Having said that, there is some logic in trying to remove it when appropriate. The asbestos at the little school is in the ceiling panels. And as long as the ceiling panels are not moved, touched, punctured,